There exists a version of you that never hesitates, a version that enters spaces and shifts the atmosphere without trying, a version whose words carry weight, whose presence demands attention not through force, but through frequency. And here's what nobody's telling you. That version isn't fantasy. They're not occupying some alternate reality you'll never reach. They're standing in your tomorrow, and the distance between here and there is closing with every breath you take. In this exact moment, you're making the decisions they'll look back on as the turning point. You're navigating the struggles they'll remember as necessary initiations. You're wrestling with the uncertainties they've already transformed into unshakable knowing. And the space between who you are right now and who they've become, it's not bridged by talent, it's not closed by luck. It's not a matter of catching the right moment. It's something far simpler and far more powerful. It's authorization. The authorization to stop making yourself smaller to fit into rooms that were never built for your full expansion. The authorization to stop justifying your value to people who lack the vision to recognize it. The authorization to stop dimming your light because your brightness makes others uncomfortable with their own shadows. The future version of you who has already won doesn't seek external confirmation. They don't wait to be invited into rooms they were born to occupy. They don't require anyone's permission to show up completely unapologetically as they are. They simply exist in their truth. And here's the part that changes everything. They're not coming back through time to rescue you from where you are. You're in the process of becoming them. Every wound you've survived is forging their invincibility. Every time you've fallen is laying the groundwork for their unshakable foundation. Every fear you push through is crystallizing into their unwavering certainty. So stop scanning the horizon for them. Start embodying them right now. Because here's what I want you to understand, on a level that goes deeper than intellectual agreement. You were never behind. You were never running late to your own life. You didn't miss the boat, the opportunity, the window, the moment. You arrived exactly when you were meant to arrive. And the timing of your arrival is more perfect than your mind can currently comprehend. Let me show you what I mean. Think about every single moment in your life when you believed you were too late. When you thought you'd missed your chance, your season, your turn. When you looked around at others who seemed further along and felt the familiar ache of not measuring up, of starting too late, of being perpetually behind an invisible finish line you could never quite reach. That feeling, that story, that belief, it's been running your life from the shadows. And it's time to see it for what it actually is. A distortion, a misreading of how reality actually works, a fundamental misunderstanding of timing, readiness, and the intelligence of your own becoming. You see, we've been conditioned to believe in linear time as the only time that matters. Clock time, calendar time, the time that says you should have accomplished this by 25 years, achieved that by 30, figured it all out by 40. The time that measures your worth by how quickly you arrive at destinations someone else decided were important. The time that says there's an expiration date on your dreams, your potential, your capacity for transformation. But that's not the time you actually live in. That's not the time where your real evolution happens. That's just the time your ego uses to torture you with comparison and regret. There's another time, a time where everything you've lived through, every detour you've taken, every seeming delay, every moment you thought you were wandering in the wrong direction, it was all necessary. It was all preparation. It was all building something in you that couldn't have been built any other way, any faster, through any other route. This is quantum time. This is the time where your readiness to receive what's yours has been calibrating beneath the surface of your awareness, where your nervous system has been slowly expanding its capacity to hold what you say you want, where your consciousness has been reorganizing itself at levels you couldn't see, preparing you for a reality your past self wasn't equipped to sustain. And in this time, you're not late. You're precisely on schedule. You're exactly where the intelligence of your own becoming has needed you to be. Think about the caterpillar dissolving in the chrysalis. If you could somehow measure its progress on a linear timeline, you'd think it was failing. You'd think it was regressing, falling apart, losing itself. But what's actually happening? It's reorganizing at the cellular level. It's breaking down everything it was so it can become something entirely new. And there's no rushing that process. There's no arriving at butterfly before the transformation is complete. The timing is built into the biology. The delay isn't delay at all. It's maturation. It's necessary dissolution before reconstruction. Your life works the same way. Every period where you felt stuck, lost, directionless, where nothing seemed to be moving forward, and you couldn't understand why everyone else seemed to be progressing while you were standing still. You weren't stuck. You were reorganizing. You were dissolving old structures. You were being prepared at levels you couldn't consciously access for a version of reality your previous operating system couldn't have processed. The universe doesn't operate on your ego's timeline. It operates on readiness, on energetic alignment, on the perfect calibration between what you're calling in and who you've become capable of being in the presence of that reality. And sometimes what looks like delay is actually divine protection. Sometimes you're being held back from arriving too soon before you've developed the internal capacity to sustain what you think you want. I need you to really feel this. How many times have you gotten something you wanted before you were ready? And how quickly did it fall apart? How quickly did you commit self-sabotage or attract its opposite, or find yourself unable to hold the frequency of what you'd manifested? That's not failure. That's information. That's your system telling you. Not yet. Not because you're not worthy. Not because it's not meant for you, but because the version of you who can receive it and keep it hasn't fully formed yet. So, when you didn't get the job you wanted 5 years ago and someone else got it instead and you felt like you'd missed your chance, maybe what was actually happening was you were being spared from entering a situation that would have locked you into a version of yourself you needed to outgrow. Maybe the delay was giving you time to discover skills, meet people, learn, lessons that would later become essential to your actual calling. Maybe you weren't being passed over. Maybe you were being rerouted towards something your limited perspective couldn't see yet. When the relationship ended, and you thought you'd lost your person, your one chance at love, maybe what was actually happening was you were being freed from a dynamic that would have kept you small, that would have asked you to betray parts of yourself to maintain connection. Maybe you weren't losing your forever. Maybe you were being redirected toward a version of love that doesn't require you to abandon who you are. Maybe the timing of that ending was the exact timing needed to prepare you for a beginning you can't imagine yet. When you felt like you were wasting your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, wandering in the wilderness while everyone else seemed to have it figured out. Maybe what was actually happening was you were gathering raw materials, collecting experiences, developing depth, building an inner library of wisdom that you'll draw on for the rest of your life. Maybe you weren't wasting time. Maybe you were composting pain into purpose in ways that only make sense in hindsight. This is what I mean when I say you were never late. You were in the holy delay, the sacred pause, the divine detour that looks like failure from the outside, but is actually the exact path your soul needed to walk to arrive at the place you're being called toward. And here's where it gets even deeper. The version of you that exists in your future. The one who's already living the reality you're reaching toward. They remember this moment. They remember the doubts you're feeling right now. They remember the confusion, the impatience, the desperate need to know when. And from where they stand, they can see how perfect the timing was. They can see how every single thing that felt like a setback was actually a setup. They can see the invisible threads connecting moments that seemed random, meaningless, wasted. They can see the pattern your present self is too close to recognize. And they're not wishing you'd hurry up. They're not frustrated with your pace. They're watching you with compassion, with knowing, with deep recognition of how necessary this exact experience is, because they know something you're still learning. You can't skip steps in consciousness. You can't rush readiness. You can't force accelerate your own evolution without creating fractures in your foundation that will show up later as self-sabotage, as energetic collapse, as manifesting and then losing what you called in because you weren't actually prepared to hold it. The pressure you're feeling to be further along isn't coming from your future self. It's coming from your wounded ego, from the part of you that's still trying to prove something to people who hurt you, from the part of you that's still running from shame, from not enoughness, from the fear that if you don't achieve certain things by certain times, you'll be revealed as a fraud, an imposter, someone who doesn't deserve to be here. That's the voice telling you you're late. That's the voice telling you you've missed your window. That's the voice telling you everyone else is ahead and you're falling behind. But your future self, they're not speaking that language. They're speaking the language of trust, of surrender, of knowing that everything is unfolding exactly as it needs to. They're not anxious about your timeline. They're certain of your arrival because they are your arrival. They're the proof that you make it, that you get there, that the path, with all its curves and detours and seeming dead ends, leads exactly where it needs to lead. So what if you stopped fighting your timing? What if you stopped comparing your 10th chapter to someone else's 30th chapter and started honoring the fact that you're exactly where you need to be for the lessons your soul is learning? What if you stopped treating your current reality as something to escape from and started seeing it as the perfect training ground for the reality you're growing into? Because here's the truth that will set you free. You don't arrive at your destiny. You become ready for it. And readiness doesn't follow a timeline you can track on a calendar. Readiness happens in quantum leaps, in sudden shifts, in moments where everything you've been unconsciously preparing for suddenly clicks into place. And opportunities that would have passed you by last year, last month, last week, suddenly find you because now you're finally vibrating at the frequency that can receive them. This is about coherence, about alignment, about the invisible work you've been doing while you thought you were doing nothing. While you thought you were wasting time spinning your wheels, stuck, you were actually rewiring your nervous system. You were unlearning patterns that would have sabotaged your success. You were healing wounds that would have bled into every relationship. You were developing discernment that will save you years of suffering. You were building a foundation strong enough to support the life you keep saying you want. And all of that requires time. Not clock time, not calendar time, but real time. Transformation time. The time it takes for caterpillars to become butterflies, for seeds to become trees, for pressure to turn coal into diamonds. You can't rush that time. You can only trust it. So let me ask you something. What if you're not late? What if you arrived early? What if you're arriving ahead of schedule for a reality that hasn't fully formed yet? And the waiting, the delay, the frustration of feeling like nothing's moving is actually you being held in divine timing until all the pieces align. What if the reason certain doors haven't opened yet is because the rooms behind them are still being built? What if you're not being rejected? What if you're being protected? I know that's hard to accept when you're in the thick of it. When you're watching people around you seem to glide into success while you're still struggling with basics. When you're seeing everyone else get chosen, get recognized, get opportunities, while you're sitting in the waiting room wondering if your name will ever be called. It's hard to trust divine timing when human timing is screaming at you that you're falling behind. But what if you shifted your perspective just slightly? What if instead of asking, "Why is this taking so long?" you started asking, "What is this preparing me for?" What if instead of, "Why am I not there yet?" you asked, "Who am I becoming in the meantime?" What if instead of, "When will my life finally start?" you recognized, "My life is happening right now and this moment is part of my becoming, not separate from it." Because the truth is, you're not waiting for your life to begin. You're not in the before part, the preparation phase, the holding pattern before the real thing starts. This is your life right now. This moment where you feel behind, uncertain, unclear about the future. This is not the intermission. This is the movie. This is the journey. This is the transformation happening in real time. And the more you resist it, the more you suffer. The more you accept it, trust it, find the perfection in it, the more you align with the intelligence that's been guiding you all along. Take a moment right here. I want you to pause and speak this phrase. I arrived exactly when I needed to arrive. Let that be your declaration, your conscious interruption of the loop that keeps telling you you're behind. Speak that phrase as a signal to your own consciousness that you're choosing a new story, that you're stepping out of the timeline that measures your worth by speed, and into the timeline that honors your readiness, your preparation, your perfect unfolding. Now let's talk about what happens when you actually accept this. When you stop fighting the timing and start working with it. When you stop seeing where you are as wrong and start seeing it as absolutely right. Something shifts, the pressure releases, the anxiety about missing your window dissolves, the comparison to others loses its power, and in that space, in that release, you actually become available for the very things you've been pushing away through resistance. Because here's what most people don't understand about manifestation. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. And when you're vibrating at the frequency of, I'm behind, I'm late, I'm not enough, I've missed my chance. That's the reality you're generating. That's the field you're creating from. That's the signal you're broadcasting to a universe that responds to vibration, not desire. But when you shift into, I'm exactly where I need to be. I trust my timing. Everything is unfolding perfectly. You're not just thinking different thoughts. You're changing your frequency. You're reorganizing your energy. You're becoming someone who naturally attracts different opportunities, different people, different possibilities, because you're operating from a different state of being. This isn't positive thinking. This isn't pretending everything's fine when it's not. This is recognizing that your interpretation of your reality is what's creating your emotional state. And your emotional state is what's creating your future reality. It's a loop. And you can intervene in that loop at any point by changing the story you're telling about where you are and what it means. The story that says you're late creates anxiety, urgency, desperation. It makes you move from lack. It makes you grasp, force, push, try to make things happen before they're ready. And energy that moves like that repels what it's trying to attract. It's too dense, too tight, too compressed. There's no space for anything new to enter. The story that says you're exactly on time creates peace, trust, presence. It allows you to move from fullness. It allows you to take aligned action instead of desperate action. It opens you up, relaxes your grip, creates space for synchronicity, for divine intervention, for things to unfold in ways you couldn't have orchestrated through force. This is the energy that attracts miracles. Not because miracles are magical, but because miracles are natural when you're not blocking them with resistance. So, the shift from I'm late to I'm on time isn't just semantic. It's an energetic, biochemical, neurological shift. It changes what your nervous system believes is possible. It changes what your subconscious mind is scanning for. It changes the decisions you make, the opportunities you notice, the risks you take, the way you show up. Everything shifts when you change this one fundamental belief about your timing. And here's the thing about future you, the version who's already living the reality you're reaching toward. They didn't get there by rushing. They got there by trusting. They didn't force their way into rooms they weren't ready for. They became ready for the rooms they were always meant to enter. They didn't spend their energy comparing their progress to others. They spent it on deepening into themselves, strengthening their foundation, becoming more solid in their knowing of who they are and what they're here to do. Every challenge you're facing right now, they faced it. Every doubt you're working through, they worked through it. Every moment of uncertainty, confusion, wondering if any of this will ever work out, they lived it. And they didn't skip over it. They didn't bypass it with affirmations or positive thinking or pretending it wasn't hard. They felt it fully. They moved through it consciously. They used it as fuel for their transformation instead of evidence of their inadequacy. That's the difference between where you are and where they are. Not time, not luck, not external circumstances, but internal capacity, energetic coherence, the ability to hold the frequency of what you want without collapsing back into old patterns when things get uncomfortable. And that capacity doesn't develop overnight. It develops through the exact experiences you're having right now. The ones that feel like delays, the ones that feel like setbacks, the ones that make you question if you're ever going to get there. You're not behind them. You're becoming them. And becoming isn't a destination you arrive at. It's a process you're always in. Even when you reach the goals you're currently chasing, there will be new goals, new versions of yourself to grow into, new layers of evolution to navigate. This never ends. The pressure you're feeling to finally arrive, to finally be done transforming, to finally reach a place where you can relax and stop growing, that's an illusion. There is no finish line in consciousness. There's only deepening, only expanding, only becoming more of what you already are. So what if you release this pressure? What if you stopped treating your current reality as a problem to solve and started treating it as a classroom you're enrolled in? What if you asked yourself, what is this teaching me? What is this strengthening in me? What am I learning here that I'll need later? What if you trusted that there's an intelligence at work that's far more sophisticated than your conscious mind's ability to plan and control? Because that's what's actually happening. There exists a version of intelligence operating beneath your awareness that knows things your logical mind can't access. It knows which experiences you need to have to develop qualities you don't even know you're missing yet. It knows which people you need to meet, which lessons you need to learn, which wounds you need to heal before you're ready for what's next. And it's orchestrating all of it with perfect precision, even when it looks like chaos from your limited vantage point. This is quantum intelligence, the intelligence of the field, the intelligence that guides birds to migrate thousands of miles without maps, that tells seeds when to sprout, that coordinates billions of cells in your body every second without your conscious input. That same intelligence is coordinating your life. And it's not random, it's not careless, it's not making mistakes with your timing. It's responding to who you are, where you are, what you're ready for, in ways that serve your highest evolution, not your ego's immediate gratification. So when you think you're late, you're actually just disagreeing with the intelligence that's guiding you. You're second-guessing the timing of something that knows what you need better than you do. And that disagreement creates suffering. Not because your circumstances are wrong, but because your interpretation of them is misaligned with what's actually happening. Having a space to return to that reminds you of the truth. That's not luxury. That's necessary. Now let's talk about what changes when you truly embody this. When it's not just a concept you understand intellectually, but a knowing you feel in your body. When you stop waiting for your life to start and recognize it's already happening. When you stop postponing your fullness until you achieve certain things and start showing up fully right now, regardless of what you've accomplished or haven't accomplished yet. Because here's what no one tells you. The version of you that you're trying to become through achievement, they're not waiting on the other side of your goals. They're available to you right now. The confidence you think you'll have when you finally make it. You can access that confidence now by deciding you're worthy of it regardless of external validation. The peace you think you'll feel when everything finally works out. You can choose that peace now by releasing your resistance to what is and trusting it's all working out, even when you can't see how. This is the paradox of transformation. You don't become worthy through achievement. You achieve through becoming worthy in your own eyes right now, with nothing added or changed. You don't become confident through success. You create success through embodying confidence before you have evidence to support it. You don't arrive at peace through control. You access peace through surrender, through trusting what you can't control, through knowing that you're being held by something larger than your individual will. And when you make that shift, when you stop waiting for external circumstances to change before you give yourself permission to be who you already are at your core, everything accelerates. Not because you're finally doing the right things, but because you're finally being aligned. And being aligned is magnetic. It draws in opportunities, people, resources, synchronicities that weren't accessible when you were operating from misalignment, from the belief that you need to be further along than you are. So the real question isn't, when will I finally get there? The real question is, who am I being right now? And is that aligned with who I say I want to become? Because if there's a gap, that's where your power is. Not in changing your circumstances, in changing your state, in closing the gap between who you're being and who you know yourself to be. Beneath all the conditioning, all the fear, all the stories about not being ready yet, you're ready now. Not because you've arrived at some imaginary finish line, but because readiness isn't about having everything figured out. It's about being willing to move forward without having everything figured out. It's about trusting yourself to handle what comes. It's about knowing that you've survived everything that's tried to break you so far. And that gives you evidence that you can handle whatever's next. Every scar you carry, that's not evidence of damage, that's proof of resilience. Every time you failed, that's not a mark against you. That's data about what doesn't work that you needed to collect. Every doubt you've overcome, that's not weakness you had to push through. That's strength you were building that you'll draw on for the rest of your life. Your future version is not made of different material than you. They're made of everything you've been through. Every hardship is their armor, every breakdown is their foundation, every moment you thought you couldn't go on, but you did anyway. That's their certainty, their unshakable knowing that they can handle anything because they've already proven it to themselves over and over again. So you're not looking for them somewhere outside yourself. You're not waiting for them to show up and rescue you from where you are. You're actively becoming them right now in this moment. With every choice you make, with every time you choose trust over fear, with every time you choose presence over resistance, with every time you choose to believe in your perfect timing instead of the story that says you're falling behind. And the more you choose that, the more you embody it, the more you live from it, the faster you collapse the distance between who you are now and who they are. Not because you're rushing the process, but because you're removing the resistance that was slowing it down. You're not trying to get somewhere faster. You're arriving more fully in where you already are. And that arrival is what allows the next step to reveal itself naturally, organically, in perfect timing. So, here's my invitation to you right now in this moment. What if you decided you're no longer available for the story that you're late? What if you consciously chose to release the comparison, the pressure, the anxiety about missing your window? What if you took a breath and said to yourself, to the universe, to the quantum field that's listening to your every vibration, I trust my timing. I'm exactly where I need to be. Everything that's happened has prepared me for what's coming. I'm not behind. I'm not late. I arrived exactly when I was meant to arrive. And I'm becoming exactly who I was always meant to become. Because let me tell you something about the nature of time that will fundamentally shift how you see your entire journey. Time is not linear in the way you've been taught to experience it. Yes, clocks tick forward. Yes, calendars move from January to December. But the time that really matters, the time where transformation occurs, where consciousness expands, where you become more of who you truly are, that time moves in spirals, in cycles, in waves that crash and recede and crash again. Each time bringing you to a similar place but at a higher level of understanding. You've probably noticed this in your own life. How you keep encountering the same lessons but from different angles. How you thought you'd healed something only to have it resurface months or years later, asking to be examined from a deeper level. How you return to the same questions, the same struggles, the same patterns. But each time you meet them, you're different. You're carrying more wisdom, more capacity, more awareness of what's actually happening beneath the surface. This is spiral time. And in spiral time, there's no such thing as going backward. Even when it feels like you're revisiting old territory, you're not in the same place you were before. You're circling back with more consciousness, more tools, more understanding. You're integrating at a deeper level. And that integration is what prepares you for the next expansion, the next level, the next version of yourself that's waiting to emerge. So when you look at your life and think, I'm dealing with the same issues I had 5 years ago. I haven't progressed at all. You're misreading the spiral for a circle. You're not stuck in the same place. You're encountering the same themes from a higher vantage point. And the fact that you can see the pattern, that you can recognize it, that's growth. That's evolution. That's proof that you're not where you were, even if the terrain looks familiar. This understanding changes everything about how you relate to your timing. Because if time is spiral rather than linear, then there's no falling behind. There's only deepening, only expanding, only returning to core themes with increasing levels of mastery. The person who recognizes the pattern and works with it consciously is not behind the person who hasn't encountered that pattern yet. They're further along. They're doing the deeper work. They're building a foundation that will support everything that comes after. And here's what's fascinating about this. In quantum physics, there's a concept called superposition. It means that a particle can exist in multiple states simultaneously until it's observed, until someone looks at it, measures it, collapses the wave function into a single reality. Your life works the same way. Right now, you exist in multiple possible timelines simultaneously. There's a timeline where you're behind, where you've missed your chance, where it's too late. There's also a timeline where you're early, where you're ahead of schedule, where everything is unfolding faster than you expected. And there's a timeline where you're exactly on time, where every single thing is happening in perfect sequence. All of these timelines exist as possibilities. And which one becomes your reality? The one you observe, the one you focus on, the one you give your attention, your energy, your belief to. This isn't metaphor. This is how consciousness interacts with the quantum field. You're not just observing your reality. You're actively participating in creating it through the lens you choose to look through. So when you keep telling yourself you're late, you're collapsing the wave function into that reality. You're selecting that timeline from the field of infinite possibilities and making it solid, making it real, making it your lived experience. And then you look around and find evidence to support it. You notice everyone who seems further along. You highlight every opportunity you missed. You emphasize every year that passed without the progress you expected. And the more evidence you find, the more real that timeline becomes until it feels like absolute truth rather than one possible interpretation among many. But you have the power to collapse a different timeline, to select a different possibility from the field, to choose to observe yourself as exactly on time, as perfectly positioned, as moving at the precise pace your soul needs to move at. And when you do that consistently, when you train your awareness to look for evidence of perfect timing instead of evidence of delay, you literally shift into a different reality. Not because the external facts changed, but because your relationship to those facts transformed, and your relationship to reality is what creates your experience of it. This is where it gets really practical. How do you actually shift timelines? How do you move from the reality where you're behind to the reality where you're on time? It starts with awareness, with catching yourself every time you slip into the old story. Every time you think, I should be further along by now. Pause. Notice that thought. Don't judge it, don't fight it, just see it for what it is. A thought, one possible interpretation, not truth, not fact, just a story your mind is telling based on conditioning, comparison, fear. And then consciously choose a different thought. Not a fake thought that you don't believe. Not toxic positivity that bypasses real feelings, but a thought that's equally true and serves you better. I'm learning what I need to learn right now. I'm developing qualities I'll need later. This is part of my path, not a deviation from it. These aren't lies, they're perspective shifts. They're choosing to collapse a timeline that empowers you, instead of one that diminishes you. And you do this over and over again, not once, not as a one-time decision, but as a practice, as a moment-by-moment choice to redirect your awareness toward the version of reality that supports your growth rather than sabotages it. And gradually, imperceptibly, at first, your experience starts to shift. The anxiety lessens, the comparison loses its grip, the pressure to be somewhere other than where you are releases its hold. And in that release, in that softening, you become available for what's trying to reach you. You become open to opportunities you would have missed when you were contracted in fear and urgency. This is the real work. Not achieving more, not moving faster, not forcing yourself to be further along, but shifting your state, changing your frequency, choosing a different relationship with where you are. And that shift, that internal recalibration, that's what creates sustainable transformation. That's what allows you to build something real, something lasting, something that doesn't collapse the moment you face a challenge. Because here's what happens to people who try to skip this step, who try to rush to the destination without doing the internal work. They get there and they can't hold it. They manifest the relationship but sabotage it because their nervous system isn't calibrated for healthy intimacy. They achieve the success, but burn out because they haven't learned to move from rest instead of from depletion. They reach the goal but feel empty because they base their worth on external achievement instead of internal knowing. You're not being delayed, you're being prepared. And the preparation isn't punishment, it's protection. It's the universe loving you enough to not give you things before you're ready to sustain them. It's your higher self knowing that if you got everything you wanted right now without the internal capacity to hold it, you'd lose it faster than you gained it. And that loss would hurt far more than the waiting. So the waiting isn't wasted time, it's integration time. It's the space between planting and harvest where roots grow deep beneath the surface. Invisible but essential. You can't see the roots. You can't measure their progress. But without them, the plant topples over the moment wind comes. With them, it stands strong through storms. The waiting is root growth. And you need deep roots for the life you're calling in. Think about athletes training for the Olympic Games. They don't just show up and compete. They spend years, sometimes decades, preparing their bodies, their minds, their spirits for the moment when it all matters. And during those years, they're not behind, they're not late. They're in exactly the phase they need to be in. Training, building, strengthening, developing the capacity to perform at levels that would destroy someone who hasn't put in the preparation. Your life is the same. You're in training. And every challenge, every setback, every moment of doubt, it's all part of the training program. It's all building capacity. It's all strengthening you for what's coming. And you can resist it. You can wish you were already at the competition. You can compare yourself to people who seem further along in their training. Or you can be present to the training itself. You can extract the lesson. You can develop the muscle. You can trust that when your moment comes, you'll be ready because you did the work that readiness requires. When you share these consciousness principles, you're not just passing along information. You're creating an energetic ripple that reinforces your own embodiment of the truth while helping shift the collective field toward trust and divine timing. Feel that in your body, not as a concept, but as a truth, as a frequency, as a decision about how you're going to relate to your reality from this moment forward. And notice what softens. Notice what opens. Notice what becomes possible when you stop fighting where you are and start working with it, trusting it, using it as the perfect training ground for where you're going. Your timing is perfect. Your readiness is building. Your future self is waiting for you to catch up, not by rushing forward, but by fully arriving in the now. You were never late. You arrived exactly on time, and everything from here unfolds in perfect sequence. Trust that. Embody that. Live from that and watch what happens. Now, understanding that you're on time is one thing, but recognizing the subtle signs that confirm you're moving in alignment with your path is another level entirely. The universe is constantly communicating with you through synchronicities, patterns, and what appear to be coincidences. And learning to read these signals transforms how you navigate your reality.